The storm hit without warning, and Maeve Calder was 3 stories deep in the lighthouse when the first wave crashed through the lower chamber door. "Damn it," she hissed, dropping her paintbrush as salt water rushed across the stone floor toward her restoration equipment. 15 months of cataloging, 3 commissioned paintings, and 2 centuries of lighthouse logs, all about to be destroyed because she'd ignored the weather report. She grabbed the nearest crate, hauling it toward the spiral stairs, when she heard footsteps above. "Hello," a man's voice, deep, unfamiliar. "Is someone down there?" "Don't come down," Maeve shouted, but he was already descending, expensive shoes splashing through rising water, tailored coat soaked within seconds. Rowan Hale stopped on the last step, taking in the flooding chamber with the kind of assessment that came from solving problems with money. Maeve recognized him immediately. Hard not to when his face had been plastered across financial magazines for months following some scandal involving corporate espionage and a very public divorce. "You're the keeper," he said, "not a question. And you're the billionaire here to destroy my home." Maeve shoved a crate into his hands. "Second floor. Now, we can hate each other after we save 200 years of history." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe respect, before he turned and carried the crate upward without argument. They worked in silence broken only by the storm's roar and the rhythmic crash of waves against stone. Maeve had studied Rowan Hale's file when she'd learned about the sale, shipping magnate, ruthless negotiator, 38 years old and allegedly incapable of emotional attachment. The tabloids called him the Ice King of international waters. The man hauling waterlogged equipment up narrow stone stairs, his $2,000 shoes ruined and his shirt clinging to his frame, didn't look particularly icy. He looked human. "That's the last of it," Rowan said, setting down the final crate. Water dripped from his dark hair and his gray eyes, the same color as the storm-churned sea, fixed on her. "You're injured." Maeve glanced down. Blood seeped through her shirt where she'd scraped against rough stone. "It's nothing. It needs cleaning." "Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button." After the storm. Now, he pulled off his coat, revealing a shirt that had probably cost more than her monthly supplies budget. "Where's your first aid kit?" "Third floor, but I can." "I'm sure you can." He was already moving toward the stairs. "But you've been working alone for an hour. Let someone help." The words hit harder than they should have. Maeve had chosen solitude after her husband's death 3 years ago, built a life around needing no one, asking for nothing. Having Rowan Hale, a man who commanded shipping empires, insist on helping felt like the universe playing a cruel joke. She followed him to her living quarters, the lighthouse's heart where she'd carved out a space that was half workshop, half sanctuary. Rowan found the first aid kit with unsettling efficiency, gesturing to a chair by the window. "Sit." "I'm not a dog." "No, you're a stubborn woman who's been bleeding for 20 minutes and pretending she's fine." His voice held no judgment, just observation. "Sit, please." Maeve sat. Rowan cleaned the wound with practiced hands, his touch careful despite their size. "You've done this before," she said. "Navy, before I inherited the company." He applied antiseptic and Maeve inhaled sharply. "Sorry, almost done." "You were in the Navy." 6 years. Left when my father died and someone needed to save the company from bankruptcy." He finished bandaging and stepped back. "You should rest. The storm's getting worse." As if to punctuate his words, lightning split the sky and the lighthouse shuddered. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in dim blue. "Perfect," Maeve muttered. "Generator, been temperamental. Could be hours before power's restored." "Do you have supplies, food, water?" "Enough for a siege." She moved toward the small kitchen area. "I'm making tea. You're welcome to stay until the storm passes. I wouldn't want to impose. You already saved 15 months of my work. Tea is the least I can offer. She filled the kettle from her emergency water supply. Besides, you'll never make it back to the mainland dock in this weather. The causeway's already flooded. Rowan moved to the window, studying the churning sea below. How often does this happen? Full flooding, maybe twice a year. Usually I have more warning. Maeve set out 2 mugs. Why are you really here, Mr. Hale? The sale doesn't finalize for another month. Rowan, he corrected, and I wanted to see the property before making final decisions. You mean before destroying it? I mean before selling it. He turned from the window. For what it's worth, I haven't decided anything. Your company already accepted the resort developer's offer. That's pretty decided. Offers can be withdrawn. Can they? Maeve poured hot water over tea leaves. Or is that just something you tell yourself so you sleep better at night? Rowan's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me. I know you inherited a struggling company and turned it into a shipping empire worth billions. I know you're here because some scandal made staying in the public eye uncomfortable. And I know you see this lighthouse as an asset to liquidate, not a home to preserve. She handed him a mug. Am I wrong? About which part? Any of it. Rowan took a long sip of tea, his expression unreadable. The scandal was my ex-wife selling corporate secrets to competitors. The board wanted a public divorce battle to prove I wasn't involved. I refused, took the PR hit, and came here to think. He set down the mug. As for the lighthouse, I see a property that's cost my family money for 3 generations with no return. But I also see why someone would love it enough to live here alone. The admission felt more intimate than it should have. I'm going to change, Maeve said, suddenly needing distance. My clothes are soaked and the salt will ruin them. There's more tea if you want it. She grabbed dry clothes and moved behind the partition that separated her sleeping area from the main space, pulling the wet shirt over her head and reaching for a towel. The antique mirror her husband had salvaged from a shipwreck stood at an angle, reflecting the main room. Reflecting Rowan. Who could see her? Their eyes met in the mirror for a split second, her bare back visible, his face registering shock and then something else. He turned away immediately. Not casually, not slowly. He turned his entire body, putting the wall between them, and Maeve heard him clear his throat. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I didn't realize the mirror. I should have mentioned I'm not looking. Maeve stood frozen, towel clutched to her chest, heart hammering. She'd expected, what? A comment. A look. The kind of entitled male gaze that assumed her body was something to be consumed. Instead, Rowan Hale had turned away and apologized. She finished dressing quickly, stepping out from behind the partition to find him standing exactly where he'd been, facing the wall like a child in timeout. You can turn around now, she said. He did, and his eyes met hers with careful neutrality. I apologize, that was an accident, Maeve finished. Old buildings, weird mirror angles, it happens. Still, I should have been more aware of my surroundings. They stood in awkward silence, the storm raging outside while something more subtle shifted between them. The tea's getting cold, Maeve finally said. They sat across from each other, drinking tea and listening to wind and waves, and neither mentioned what had happened. But Maeve couldn't stop thinking about it. About the fact that Rowan Hale, a man who commanded billions, who could have anything he wanted, had seen her vulnerable, and his first instinct had been to look away. To protect her privacy rather than exploit it. Tell me about the lighthouse, Rowan said after a long silence. Why dedicate your life to preserving it? Maeve wrapped her hands around her mug. My husband loved lighthouses, studied their architecture, their history. We traveled to 43 of them before he died. She stared into her tea. This was supposed to be number 44. We were going to spend a year here together, documenting its history. Then cancer happened, and by the time he was gone, I couldn't leave. This lighthouse became the only place where I still felt close to him. I'm sorry for your loss. Everyone is. That's why I live here alone. I got tired of people treating me like I was broken. She met his eyes. I'm not broken. I'm just different than I was. Different isn't broken, Rowan said quietly. It's just different. The simplicity of his understanding made Maeve's chest ache. What about you? She asked. Why shipping? Why not something that keeps you on land? My father believed the sea tested a man's character, that if you could navigate storms, you could handle anything. Rowan's smile was bitter. Turns out he was wrong. I can handle storms fine. It's people I struggle with. Hence the Ice King nickname. You've been reading about me. I research everyone who threatens my home. Maeve refilled their mugs. The tabloids make you sound inhuman, but you don't seem inhuman to me. What do I seem like? Tired, she said honestly. Like someone who's been performing strength for so long they've forgotten what it feels like to just be. Rowan stared at her, something vulnerable flickering across his face before his mask slid back into place. You see too much. Occupational hazard of living alone. You learn to read the few people you encounter. And what else do you read? That you're here because you want to be someone different than the man the tabloids describe. That the scandal hurt more than you'll admit. That you're considering keeping the lighthouse but you're afraid of what that choice means. She tilted her head. How am I doing? Disturbingly accurate. He stood, moving to the window. The storm's weakening. I should check the lower chambers, make sure there's no structural damage. We should both check. You're injured. It's a scratch, and this is my lighthouse. Maeve stood, ignoring the pull of her wound. I know where the weak points are. They descended together, and Maeve was acutely aware of Rowan behind her, solid and careful on the narrow stairs. The lower chamber was a disaster, mud and debris everywhere, water slowly receding through the drain system installed a century ago. 2 weeks of cleanup minimum, Maeve calculated, maybe 3. I'll help. She turned sharply. What? I said I'll help. I'm staying on the island for the month anyway. Might as well be useful. Rowan surveyed the damage with a practiced eye. Unless you don't want my help. Maeve should refuse. Should maintain boundaries between herself and the man who held her home's fate in his hands. But something about Rowan Hale made her want to say yes. Fine, she said. But I work on my schedule, not yours, and if you're here you follow my rules. Agreed, he extended his hand, partners. Maeve shook it, feeling calluses that shouldn't exist on a billionaire's palm. Partners. The storm cleared by dawn, revealing a lighthouse battered but standing. Rowan left to retrieve supplies from the mainland, promising to return by afternoon. Maeve spent the morning cataloging damage, trying not to think about mirror reflections and the man who'd looked away. He returned with a truck full of industrial cleaning equipment, work clothes, and enough food to feed a crew. I thought it was just you, Maeve said, eyeing the supplies. It is, but I wasn't sure what you'd need. Rowan pulled out a box of expensive coffee, peace offering. I'm told I'm difficult to work with. The tabloids mentioned that too. Then I'm living up to my reputation. He changed into work clothes, jeans, and a plain shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous than his tailored suits. Where do we start? They fell into a rhythm over the following days. Mornings spent clearing debris, afternoons devoted to restoration work, evenings to shared meals and conversation that grew deeper with each passing day. Rowan never mentioned the mirror incident. Never looked at her differently. Never made her feel like anything had changed. Except everything had changed. Maeve found herself watching him when he didn't know. The careful way he handled fragile artifacts, the patience he showed with tedious restoration work, the vulnerability that crept into his expression during their late-night conversations. Why did you really come here? she asked one evening as they ate dinner on the lighthouse gallery, sunset painting the sea gold. I told you, the sale. No, the real reason, not the business reason. Rowan was quiet for a long moment, because I wanted to see if I could be someone else, someone who didn't need control or power or walls. He looked at her. Someone who could just exist. And have you seen if you could be that person? I'm starting to. He reached for his water glass and their hands brushed. Neither pulled away. You make it easier being here, being seen without being judged. I judge you plenty. But not for my money or my mistakes. You judge my character. That's different. Maeve's phone buzzed, a rare occurrence given the island's spotty service. She glanced at it and her blood went cold. What is it? Rowan asked. Email from your company's lawyers. Final sale documents. They're giving me 30 days to vacate before demolition begins. The sunset suddenly looked like a funeral. Demolition, Rowan took the phone, scanning the email. His jaw tightened. I didn't authorize this. It's your company. And I'm still CEO. This shouldn't have gone out without my approval. He was already dialing. Give me a minute. He walked to the far side of the gallery, and Maeve watched him transform from the man she'd been getting to know into the billionaire who commanded empires. His voice was cold, clipped, absolutely authoritative. When he returned, his expression was carefully neutral. It's a mistake. The lawyers misunderstood the timeline. You have at least 90 days, probably longer. But the sale is happening. The sale, Rowan stopped, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated. No, it's actually very simple. You're selling my home to developers who will destroy it. Everything else is just delay. Maeve stood, suddenly exhausted. Thank you for your help these past weeks, but I think it's better if you stop coming. Maeve. Please, she couldn't look at him. Just go. He did, and Maeve stood alone on the gallery, watching his truck disappear down the coastal road. She'd been a fool to think anything could change. Billionaires didn't abandon profit for preservation. And she wouldn't stay to watch her home be destroyed. 3 days later, Maeve was packing when she heard the helicopter. She stepped outside to see it landing on the lighthouse grounds. Sleek, expensive, absolutely unnecessary for island travel. Rowan emerged wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase, looking every inch the billionaire she'd been trying to forget. You came back, she said flatly. I came back. He walked to where she stood, and I came with a proposal. I'm not interested in. The sale is canceled. He opened the briefcase, pulling out legal documents. As of this morning, the lighthouse and surrounding property have been transferred to the National Historic Preservation Trust. No development, no demolition, complete protection. Maeve stared at the documents. What? I canceled the sale, withdrew from the deal, transferred ownership to the trust with the stipulation that current residents, meaning you, can remain indefinitely as caretakers. He set the papers on the stone wall. It's done. Why? Her voice broke. You'll lose millions. I'll lose money, but I'd lose something more important if I let this place be destroyed. Rowan looked at the lighthouse, then back at her. You asked me once if I came here to be someone different. The answer is yes. I came here to find out if I could be someone who valued preservation over profit, someone who chose right over easy. Rowan, I'm not doing this for you. I mean, I am, but not only for you. He took a breath. I'm doing this because that night in the mirror when I saw you and turned away, that was the first time in years I chose someone else's comfort over my own curiosity. And it felt right. Like maybe I could be the person I wanted to be instead of the person I'd become. Tears streamed down Maeve's face. I thought you'd just delay the inevitable, that billionaires always choose profit. Most do, but I'm trying to be different. He stepped closer. I'm trying to be the man who deserves someone like you, even if you never want to see me again, even if this is goodbye. Is it? Maeve whispered. Goodbye. That's up to you. She kissed him. As Maeve pulls back from the kiss, Rowan's phone rings. His expression shifts from hope to horror as he answers. What do you mean the board called an emergency vote? They can't. He looks at Maeve, then back at his phone. I'll be there in 4 hours. He hangs up. I have to go. My board is trying to remove me as CEO for canceling the sale. If they succeed, the new CEO will reverse everything. Rowan was gone before Maeve could process what had happened. The helicopter disappearing into coastal fog, while she stood holding legal documents that might become worthless if his board succeeded. She spent 3 days in agonizing silence, island cell service too unreliable for updates, watching news websites load at glacial speeds on her ancient laptop. Finally, on the 4th day, headlines started appearing. Hale shipping in turmoil, board attempts coup. Ice King melts, Rowan Hale faces ouster over preservation decision. Billionaire's gamble, CEO status in jeopardy after canceling multi-million-dollar deal. Maeve read them all, her stomach churning. Rowan was losing everything because he'd saved her lighthouse. On the 5th day, a boat arrived carrying Rowan's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah who looked exhausted. Ms. Calder, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Hale. Is he okay? The question came out more desperate than Maeve intended. That depends on your definition of okay. He's currently in an 18-hour board meeting that will determine if he remains CEO. Sarah handed over a sealed envelope. He asked me to deliver this regardless of the outcome. Maeve took it with shaking hands. Thank you. Sarah hesitated. For what it's worth, I've worked for Rowan for 8 years. I've never seen him fight for something the way he's fighting for this. Most billionaires would cut their losses, but he's in that boardroom telling 20 angry investors that some things matter more than quarterly earnings. She smiled slightly. Whatever happened on this island, it changed him. Thought you should know. After Sarah left, Maeve sat on the lighthouse gallery and opened the envelope. The letter was handwritten, Rowan's script surprisingly elegant. Maeve, if you're reading this, one of 2 things has happened. Either I've retained control of my company or I've lost everything. Honestly, I'm not sure which outcome scares me more. I spent 20 years building an empire on the belief that control equals safety. That if I maintained enough power, made enough money, controlled enough variables, I'd never be vulnerable to the chaos that destroyed my father. Then I met you. You who chose to live in a lighthouse with storms and solitude and zero control over the elements. You who lost your husband and instead of building walls, you built something beautiful in his memory. You who saw me at my worst, calculating, cold, ready to destroy your home for profit, and still offered me tea. That night with the mirror changed everything. Not because of what I saw, but because of what I chose. For once in my adult life, I chose someone else's dignity over my own curiosity, and it felt like the first honest thing I'd done in decades. I'm writing this before the board meeting, before I know how this ends. But I need you to know something. Even if I lose the company, even if this decision destroys everything I built, I don't regret it. I'd rather be the man who saved a lighthouse than the man who built an empire on things that didn't matter. Whatever happens, the preservation trust is legally binding. Your home is safe. You're safe. That's what matters. As for us, I don't know what we are or what we could be, but I know that being with you felt like finally breathing after years of holding my breath. If the board lets me keep the company, I'm coming back to the island. Not to claim you or pressure you or turn whatever we started into something transactional. Just to see if maybe you'd let me be someone different. Someone who chooses preservation over profit. Someone who chooses you. If they remove me as CEO, I'm still coming back. Might take me longer to untangle the legal mess, but I'll come back. Because that lighthouse is the first place I've felt like myself in years, and you're the first person who made me want to be better. Wait for me. Or don't. Either way, know that you changed me in ways that matter more than any board vote. Yours if you'll have me. Rowan. Maeve read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. Then she did something she rarely did. She prayed to the sea and her husband's memory for guidance. The board vote took 6 days. 6 days of media speculation, leaked documents, and talking heads debating whether Rowan Hale had lost his mind or found his soul. On the evening of the 6th day, a boat arrived carrying a single passenger. Rowan climbed the lighthouse steps slowly, like a man who'd been through war. He wore jeans and a worn sweater, no suit, no armor, and his eyes were exhausted but clear. "Did you win?" Maeve asked from the doorway. "I won, barely. 3 board members resigned in protest, and I'll probably lose several major investors, but I'm still CEO." He stopped a few feet away. "But I think you're asking the wrong question." "What's the right question?" "Not whether I won the vote, but whether I won the chance to be someone different." He took a breath. "Maeve, I spent 6 days in a boardroom explaining why preserving a lighthouse mattered more than $40 million in profit. And you know what I realized? I wasn't just fighting for the lighthouse. I was fighting for the man I could be if I chose differently." "And who is that man?" "Someone who values what can't be measured in quarterly earnings. Someone who understands that real power is knowing when not to take. Someone who—" his voice cracked. "Someone who fell in love with a lighthouse keeper who taught him that being vulnerable isn't weakness." Maeve's breath caught. "You love me." "I love you, not because of that night with the mirror, though that moment changed everything. I love you because you see me without my armor and you're not afraid of what's underneath. Because you chose grief and beauty over bitterness. Because you made me believe I could be better than the man I was." "I love you too." The words felt like dropping a weight she'd carried for years. "I've been fighting it because loving a billionaire who could buy and sell my entire life seemed like asking for heartbreak. But Rowan, you're not that billionaire anymore. Or maybe you never were." I absolutely was." He moved closer. "But I'm trying to be someone different now. Someone who chooses right over easy, who values preservation over profit, who—" She kissed him, cutting off his words, and Rowan pulled her close like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Maeve said, "So what happens now? You go back to your empire and I stay in my lighthouse and we what? Video call on weekends." "Actually, I have a proposal. A real one, not a business one." Rowan pulled out folded documents. "The board agreed to let me restructure my role. I'll remain CEO but transition day-to-day operations to a team I trust, which means I can work remotely most of the time." "Remotely from where?" "That depends. There's a cottage near the lighthouse that's been empty for years. I'd like to rent it, live there, be close enough to help with restoration work but far enough to give you space." He looked at her steadily. "I'm not asking to move into your home or your life uninvited. I'm asking if you'd be open to building something together, slowly, honestly, without pressure." Maeve's heart was pounding. "You'd really leave everything to live on a tiny island in a probably drafty cottage just to be near me?" "I'd leave everything to be someone worthy of you. The cottage is just logistics." He smiled slightly. "Besides, someone needs to make sure that generator gets fixed properly, and your tea-making skills are terrible." "My tea is fine." "Your tea is aggressively mediocre." He kissed her forehead. "But I love you anyway." "I love you too, and yes." "Yes to what?" "Yes to the cottage. Yes to building something together. Yes to seeing if a lighthouse keeper and a reformed billionaire can figure out how to share an island without killing each other." She grinned. "But Rowan, if you're staying, you're learning to paint. Every lighthouse keeper's partner learns the craft. It's tradition." "I'm terrible at art." "Then you'll fit right in. My first attempts looked like a child's finger paintings." She pulled him inside. "Come on, Storms coming in, and if you're going to be my partner, you need to learn emergency protocols. They spent the evening going over lighthouse systems, and Maeve caught herself watching Rowan take notes with an intensity usually reserved for board meetings. "You're really taking this seriously," she said. "Of course I am. This is your home, your life's work. If I'm going to be part of it, I need to understand it properly." He looked up from his notes. "Unless you'd prefer I stay detached." "No, I'm not used to people caring about what I care about." "Then you've been around the wrong people." Rowan set down his notes. "Maeve, I meant what I said in that letter. You changed me. Made me want to be someone who preserves instead of exploits, who builds instead of destroys. And I'm going to spend every day proving that wasn't just pretty words." "I believe you," she took his hand. "But Rowan, you need to understand something. Living here isn't easy. The storms are brutal, the isolation is real. The work is constant and unglamorous. This isn't some romantic notion. It's hard, daily, sometimes miserable work." "I know, I've been here 3 weeks, I've seen it." He squeezed her hand. "And I want it anyway, all of it. The storms and the silence and the hard work, because it's real. And I'm so tired of things that aren't real." The cottage renovations took 2 months. Rowan hired local contractors, much to Maeve's surprise. "I could have brought in a luxury firm from the city," he said when she asked. "But this is an island community. The work should support local families. Look at you, thinking like a lighthouse keeper instead of a CEO." "I'm trying." He surveyed the cottage's progress. "Though I'm keeping the heated floors, some billionaire habits die hard." They fell into a rhythm. Rowan split his time between CEO duties conducted via video conference and physical labor on both the cottage and lighthouse. Maeve continued her restoration work, occasionally looking up to find Rowan watching her paint with an expression that made her heart skip. "What?" she asked during one such moment. "Just memorizing this. You painting. The way you get that line between your brows when you're concentrating. The way the light hits your hair." He smiled. "Memorizing happiness for future reference. That's incredibly sappy." "I'm a billionaire in love with a lighthouse keeper. Sappy comes with the territory." The island community slowly accepted Rowan's presence. He helped with dock repairs, funded the school's new library, and showed up to community events without fanfare. The locals stopped seeing him as the billionaire and started seeing him as Maeve's partner. "Never thought I'd see the day," old Thomas said during a harbor festival. "The Ice King defrosted by our lighthouse keeper." "He was never as cold as people thought," Maeve said, watching Rowan help set up festival booths. "Just lonely. Aren't we all, until we find our harbor." 3 months after his board vote, Rowan moved into the cottage. Maeve helped him unpack, laughing at his attempts to organize a space 1/10 the size of his penthouse. "Where do you keep coffee?" he asked, surveying the tiny kitchen. "Same place everyone keeps coffee, in the cabinet." "Which cabinet? There are 6. That's your first lesson in cottage living. Everything has exactly one right place, and you need to remember it or you'll spend your life searching for basic items." She opened the correct cabinet. "Coffee here, tea next to it, mugs above the sink." "This is going to be a disaster." "Probably," she kissed him, "but we'll figure it out." They did slowly. Rowan learned to cook on the cottage's ancient stove. Maeve learned to share her solitary routines with another person. They fought about small things, Rowan's workaholic tendencies, Maeve's stubborn independence, and found their way through to understanding. "I'm not used to asking for help," Maeve admitted after a particularly frustrating day when she tried to move heavy equipment alone. "And I'm not used to not controlling everything," Rowan countered. "So we're both learning together." 6 months after the board vote, they had their first real fight. Rowan had been called back to the city for an unavoidable in-person meeting. He'd been gone 5 days, and when he returned, Maeve had transformed the lighthouse's second floor into a new exhibition space without consulting him. You restructured the entire floor. Rowan surveyed the changes with an expression Maeve couldn't read. The Historical Society commissioned a permanent exhibit, I thought. You thought you'd make major changes without discussing it. It's my lighthouse. Our lighthouse, Rowan corrected quietly. At least I thought it was becoming ours, but clearly I'm still just the billionaire boyfriend who lives in the cottage. The words stung because they held truth. Maeve had been holding back, keeping parts of herself and her home separate from Rowan, afraid that letting him fully in meant losing herself. You're right, she said after a long silence. I'm scared of needing you, scared of building a life around someone again and losing them, scared that if I let you all the way in, I'll lose the independence I fought so hard to create. I'm scared too, Rowan sat on the steps. Scared I'll slip back into old patterns, scared I'll hurt you, scared I'm fundamentally too broken to be what you need. He looked up at her. But Maeve, I can't be your partner if you won't let me in, if you keep making major decisions alone because you're afraid of depending on someone. I don't know how to not be afraid. Neither do I, so let's be afraid together. Let's make decisions together. Let's build something neither of us could build alone. He stood, taking her hands. I love you, not as the billionaire who saved your lighthouse, but as the man who wants to spend his life helping you preserve what matters. But that only works if you let me help. Maeve leaned against him, breathing in salt and coffee and the scent that had become home. Okay, together, I'll try. That's all I ask. 1 year after Rowan's board vote, the Lighthouse exhibition opened to the public 1 weekend per month. The first opening drew 300 visitors, far exceeding expectations. Maeve gave tour while Rowan managed logistics, and by the end of the day, both were exhausted but beaming. We did it, Maeve said as the last visitor left. An entire day without disaster. I wouldn't say without disaster. That child almost knocked over a 17th century navigation instrument. But he didn't because you caught it. She leaned into him. We make a good team. We do. Rowan pulled something from his pocket, a small box, which is why I wanted to ask you something. Maeve's heart stopped. Rowan. I'm not proposing, not yet, but I wanted to give you this. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring with a small lighthouse engraved on the band. It's a promise that I'm here, that I choose this life with you over any other, that you're not alone in preserving this place anymore. Rowan, tears streamed down her face. If and when I propose for real, it'll be different. Bigger question, different ring. But for now, I wanted you to have something that says I'm committed to building this life. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I truly appreciate you for spending your time here. It means a lot more than you know. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I really want to hear from you. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Your support helps the channel grow and brings more stories like this your way. Thank you for being here. More amazing stories are coming, don't miss them.